Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started right at the top of the hour. See people filtering in. Welcome, everyone. Again, we'll get started right at the top of the hour. We'd love to know in the chat where you're joining us from. I'll let you know that I am joining in a suburb of DC in Virginia outside of the NAEA office. Welcome, everyone. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. And again, we'll be getting started in less than a minute at the top of the hour. We've got someone joining us from New Hampshire and Chico, California. Welcome. Portland, Oregon. That is on my bucket list of places to go. I've never been. Always wanted to. Welcome. And again, we'll be getting started just right at the top of the hour. Bel Air, Maryland. Welcome, Frank. Fort Myers, Florida. It's probably nice and warm where you are. Not so much where I am. Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in less than a minute. Another Portland, Oregon. Welcome. So good to see everyone. All right, it is 4 p.m. Eastern by my clock, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. I just want to welcome everyone to today's EA career panel. We do these every quarter, and it's really just a way to talk about the EA career, talk about how to become an EA, the benefits of it, to ask questions to EAs and new EAs who are in the room about what it's like to be an EA and how to become one, etc. I will be in the chat and in the Q&A for anyone who needs any technical help, but I'm going to pass it over to my name's Erin Mosier. I'm the Director of Education at NAEA. I always forget that part. And I'm actually going to pass it over to our moderator today, Catherine Bostock-Hootie, who is the former chair of the Education Foundation. So Catherine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Erin. Appreciate that. I've been an EA since 2005 and been doing taxes since 1998. So it's been a day or two that I've been doing this. But enough about me, because we're not here for me. We're here for everybody else. And our topic today is expanding your practice and offerings. So I'm going to start with Shauna, and please introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've been an EA and what kind of practice you're in and what your practice offers.
All right, well, I am out of Pasco County. I have been doing taxes for too many years to count. Decided to get my EA. My father was a tax attorney, enrolled agent, etc. So he kind of was grooming me to take over. He passed away last year. He was actually part of our chapter in the NAEA. And so I had started my own business a couple of years ago, specializing in agriculture. We do a lot of representation. That's basically tax returns. We do a lot of nonprofit. And so we don't necessarily have one specific base minus agriculture to concentrate on, just because we have such a wide variety of clients. A lot of them passed over to me from my father, but we try to expand in terms of, I say that knowledge continues, because we always have a client that comes to us with a question that, definitely challenges us. So representation is more of our focus, but we're happy to take on any clients as far as taxes. We do not do bookkeeping.
Okay, thank you. Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your practice is like.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Brad Messner. We were joking right before we started. I started doing taxes when I was 16. I've been doing them for 28 years, so you can kind of do the math on that one. However, I grew up in a generational firm, so I'm third generation tax preparer, and I was actually unaware of the enrolled agent credential up until my father passed about 9 or 10 years ago. And that's when I got much more involved in the operations side, and I learned about the the EA status. And 8 years ago, I donated a kidney, and I spent the time while I was recovering to study and prep and then pass the EA exam. So the timing is always going to be rememberable for me. And our firm is pretty diverse. We work with a lot of also oddly some farmers and agriculture, but we do a lot of small businesses, corporations. We do a lot of individual and focus some with generational workings. And we do a nice gambit of offerings as far as payroll, bookkeeping, some family planning, and other services like that.
Thank you, Brad. Ty, would you like to talk about yourself a little bit?
I'd love to follow Brad because I am a kidney transplant recipient. So very good of you to actually donate a kidney. Yesterday was actually my 1 year anniversary of receiving my kidney. So I know this isn't about that, but it just segued in. So I'll just go there. So thank you, Brad, for being a donor. But I also, like Brad, have been doing taxes for a long time, actually just 22 years, but I started when I was 2. So there you go. And I actually became an EA 2007-ish, I think. I actually took the old exam. So those of you taking this now don't know that it used to be terrible. It was an exam that you had to wait every 2 years and take it, and it had 4 parts, and it was in person and on paper, and you had to sit in a room. Well, I took that. Catherine probably did because she
I
said
did too.
2005. And I actually passed 3 out of 4 of the parts, but I was scared because I didn't know what to expect with the new test. So I tried to get it in, only passed 3 out of the 4. They didn't carry forward. And then I had to take the new exam the following year. So that's when I became an EA, like one of the very few first people to take the new EA exam. I am out of Fort Worth, Texas now. I basically have lived everywhere as a military spouse in a prior life. I spent most of my life in the DC area, and I have a virtual practice. So when I moved to wherever my clients go with me, the majority of them being military retired. Since COVID, I've worked for a crypto tax firm, Token Tax. I'm project manager there. I do most of the review of tax returns of the tax department. And I kind of manage a lot of the operations there for the crypto firm. So I have 2 different kind of areas of specialty, but being virtual, I can work any and everywhere. So that's one of the best things about our career. And I'm sure we'll all talk about that a little later.
Thank you, Ty. Kathy?
Thank you, Catherine. I am Kathy Brown, EA. My practice and I reside in Kentucky. We're kind of on the Ohio River between Cincinnati and Louisville, so I can be to Cincinnati, Ohio in no time. I can be in Indiana in 4 miles from the Ohio River, so right across the river there I am. I have my bachelor's degree in accounting, graduated from Northern Kentucky University in 1995. Did what most accounting graduates do, and that's I went to work for a CPA firm and immediately started in tax because during college, took all of those accounting classes, but as soon as I took that first tax class, I said, oh, this is awesome. I love tax. I was an instant nerd, loved it. So I was determined to end up in a tax department at a CPA firm. Was there for several years, actually partnered a CPA firm for a few years. And it wasn't till after that, when I was on my own and had started my own practice individually, that I had an IRS agent come to my office and tell me that he could not talk to me unless my client was present, because I was not a CPA, an EA, or an attorney. And I said, you said a what in the middle of that? EA? What's that? Because at the time I had taken and passed 3 of the 4 parts of the CPA exam. So I was working on the 4th part. And once I learned about the EA exam, took it, and it was an amazing feeling to know that I never had to have a client in front of an IRS agent or officer ever again, that they had to talk to me. So my practice has been around for a minute. I'm not going to start talking years because then I'll start talking age. And I've been doing this for a really long time. I have slowed it down a little bit because at my age, I'm getting a look, don't need to do it as much as I used to. At one point, it was quite a large firm, had about 12 to 14 employees at any given time. Have slowed it down a little bit. My customer base or client base is all over the place. I have filled in as a controller at a casino locally. I've got agriculture. I mean, I'm in the horse world, capital of the world. So there's a lot of farms and horse farms in my area. And then, of course, the regular clients like all of us have dealt with, from chiropractors to dentists to pastors to teachers to etc. So that's me. Oh, and I guess I should mention I'm also past president of NAEA until May, and then my term ends. So
Thank you very much. Shauna, I heard that you were sort of in a niche area of agriculture, where you
Mhm.
specialized in agriculture. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I know agriculture has some really, really weird rules.
Yeah, it actually started by just meeting a rancher randomly, and he had a tax accountant prior to me, and so he said he thought things were just a little fishy, or maybe he could have taken more deductions. And it's interesting, a lot of people don't think that you can depreciate like cattle and all the various aspects of a ranch, what you use to utilize the ranch, and what you can not only deduct, but like I said, depreciate, and tax planning as well. A lot of, I say that, the farmers are the ones that are going down, the ranchers are the ones that are going down. And so that's why I decided to specialize in it, because, I wanted to fight for the little guy and see, especially generational ranches. This guy almost lost his ranch because it came from a loan. He couldn't pay the loan, but that's because this tax accountant, I'll say a CPA, not in a negative sense, but he didn't take all, guide him well as far as the deductions. So if he would have been in a spot of owing all these taxes when he wasn't getting the right income, leasing the land, et cetera, there's so many aspects that you can take as far as how you can utilize the land, not only for yourself, but also leasing it out. And that's just a passion of mine, wanting to have my own ranch. So I guess that's just always fighting for the little guy. I guess that's why we're here, right? It's to represent our clients. And so many of the ones come to me and say, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And it's so wonderful to be an enrolled agent and say, guess what? I can help. I can be, because the IRS will talk to you and then go, oh, so you have representation, and not just a CPA, but an enrolled agent, which is, I call it top tier. No negativity to the CPAs, but it's top tier because of our credentials. And it's such an amazing feeling to go into these. And I just say, always educate, educate, educate. There's never an end to education. There's never an end. Every tax return I do, I learn something. I learn how I can, and it's just sometimes intricate details. And it's just always paying attention, always asking questions. A lot of my clients that were new came to me saying, my CPA never asked questions. They just kind of said, this is what we're going to do. And it's looking at the big picture, especially with agriculture. What's the big picture overall? What do we want to accomplish? How do we want to succeed? Especially if they want to pass it on to another generation.
Now, Ty, I heard you say that you were working for a crypto firm, which crypto is becoming a really big deal, and there's a lot of regulations potentially coming down the pike on that. Could you expand on the crypto piece of that?
So yes, we don't have a lot of I will say we have guidance, we have FAQs, but we don't have a lot of rules yet. And there's a lot of gray areas with crypto because it's a evolving space, right? So something new with crypto pops up like every other second. And so people design these new protocols, and the tax ability of it is questionable initially, right? And so what we do at Token Tax is we actually provide software that helps reconcile your crypto transaction. So generally when someone purchases crypto, they have to buy it through an exchange. Some of you may have heard of Coinbase or Binance. I won't say the word FTX because that's probably been in the news and that one like failed, but we won't go there. But these exchanges, or you have a wallet and you actually can purchase this. Crypto is similar in a basic level of like purchasing stock, but the difference with crypto is that people don't necessarily buy it through like a broker. So the exchange is kind of like a broker. The wallet is kind of like I think PayPal, like an intermediary where you could buy something without using like your credit card, so to speak, right? So the wallet is kind of your your way in to purchase these cryptocurrencies, and then you can hold them in your wallet and you can do other things with these, like play video games or purchase things. You can even go to Starbucks and pay with Bitcoin. So it opens up the space. A lot of people are like, why would you, like, who does this? Well, I will tell you, people do it and they make millions doing it. My average return of what I tell people they owe, when I do estimated taxes, I'm generally telling people that their quarterly payments are $1 million or more, and that their ending balances are usually 10 million and up that people owe when they file these returns. So there's money in it, and that's why people do it. It's definitely its own space and its own area. And I would say that the average tax preparer probably won't run across a crypto client that's doing it in a very complex way. If you just buy and trade like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is the basic level of it, it's like stock. So it's not complicated. But if you're in decentralized finance and you do things where you're actually playing games and making loans and putting into liquidity pools and earning interest and staking, like it gets very, very complex. And the tax part of it is very tricky. We literally have to ask the client, like, what did you do? What are you doing? You know, and they sell NFTs and you're trying to figure out what do I tax this as? Is this a collectible? Is it not? You know, we have these questions in the EA journal. The next issue will have an NFT article on the collectible, you know, our NFTs collectibles. So definitely check that out. And because I am the editor-in-chief of the EA journal, got to throw that plug in too. If you're not an EA member, we send journals out to our members with articles written by people in the profession about various topics. Given that this is kind of my area, I've made sure we kind of have a lot of crypto specific articles coming through. So we'll have a little bit more education on it in terms of what we do have. And right now, crypto's looking good. We're coming out of a bear. We're moving into a bull market. So it's an exciting time for us because we usually get a lot more activity. People don't like to file taxes in a bear market because they don't have money and they can't liquidate assets. But in a bull market, it gets to be a little bit more activity. So it looks like that's what we're heading into now, especially after Jesse Powell's comments this morning. It's looking very bullish. So.
Thank you, Ty. Brad, earlier when we were talking, I know that you're third generation, but you were talking about slowly getting into representation. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so one thing we've noticed is we've had some clients for 40 plus years. And even more so, we were actually talking a couple of weeks ago, we're now in the fourth generation of some of our clients. And especially where we're dealing with businesses, what we've really found is as businesses are transitioning from, say, parent to child or even parent to grandchild or so forth, we're seeing that the need to be able to represent them as they get letters and notices has been increasing purely because those are non-standard situations that they deal with. So we've really been ramping up our understanding of some of those auxiliary areas. So representation is one. We've even been getting, like I said, into more of the bookkeeping side, not because we love doing it necessarily, but because we find it's a better service to our clients than handing off the business to someone that maybe doesn't have that skill set or so forth. But yeah, we've actually found that as we bring on, say, the next generation, that they don't always have that same understanding, and they don't necessarily want to always get into the weeds of all the tax stuff. They want to rely on us, but then when that letter or notice comes, they want to make sure that they can still work with us to work through that with resolution. And there's nothing better than, and I hate to say when they get that letter, but when they get that letter and we're able to quickly resolve it, because in a lot of cases, maybe they shouldn't have even received that letter or notice. And we're able to get it quickly resolved, especially if it's something we can quickly do over the phone. And that is where I think has been some of the nicest benefit of being an enrolled agent, is I don't always have to try to get the client on the phone with the IRS. I can just get signed authorization, make that quick phone call, and call the client in a couple days and say, hey, we have it resolved and we don't have to worry about it moving forward.
Thank you. Kathy, I know at one point you were also doing a gig with Intuit. You do an awful lot of things. Can you expand on some of your career paths that you've had?
Sure. Yeah, I get bored easily, in case you can't tell. So I do. I do. So when I had decided to kind of slow down my practice a few years ago, I got bored pretty quickly. Wasn't doing 300 tax returns in a tax season. And I thought, what am I going to do with my time? So I decided to dabble in the Intuit TurboTax world. The surprise to me was I loved it. I absolutely loved talking to these people and hearing the relief in their voice when you just explain something to them. And it wasn't about the software. I was a tax expert, so I was there to answer question about their tax. And for anybody that's considering being an EA, and I'm not getting endorsed for saying this, but I do, Intuit is a good path, because you can start out as a tax pro. Once you pass the exam, you can become an EA, and they actually offer a pathway to EA program inside of Intuit. So that's something to keep in mind. There's also something that I want to share that's new that Catherine hasn't heard yet. I've also recently taken a role with UKG, which is Ultimate Kronos Group, as their government relations manager. And that's a direct part of being a volunteer at NAEA and being active with government relations. And so anything IRS, I'm the liaison between UKG, which is a competitor of ADP and Paychex and those folks. So when you have your EA license, you can do a lot of things. You really can. I've done everything from partner a CPA firm to work for TurboTax, to own my own practice, to now do government relations. So yeah, it's the doors are open everywhere once you can just pass that exam.
That's a very exciting new chapter in your life.
It is. I'm loving it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been great so far.
So there's no need to ask what you're going to do next.
Oh, and I still have my practice on the side. So as I said, I get bored easily. So might as well.
So, Tanisha, what are your future plans?
Well, part of what I do also is teach. So I'll be, and a lot of it is crypto, but I also teach regular tax stuff, whatever that may be. I don't even know what regular tax stuff is anymore, but I guess whatever goes on, the 1040. But I teach a lot, and I used to teach the enrolled agent exam, which if you're on this call, perhaps you've already looked at. The EA exam. When I was in Northern Virginia, I taught with the Northern Virginia Community College. We had an EA exam course that was part of that. And I used to teach that for a number of years, and I no longer teach there. I used Glime when I did, but I currently update the Surgeon EA exam course that we have. So after you pass, like you never let go of things is what basically my point is, right? Because I passed the E exam in 2007 and then I taught the EA exam years later, and now I'm updating the curriculum for the EA exam after that. So the paths continue just when you think you've like accomplished something. You know, something else happens that you just hit that next level with it. So I'm open. Also, as I mentioned before, being the editor-in-chief of the journal, I have a lot of articles because I'm coming in. I need to review and get them journal ready for people. So I think my hands are going to be full with just, in addition to, like Kathy said, my practice and working my job at Token Tax, I will teach classes occasionally. I will update Surgeon materials for future EAs. And I will EA journal articles. So I think that's enough. I don't know what you think, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. People try to throw additional things like Kathy. I actually served on the board when Kathy was president. So I'm actually a former NAEA board member and a former president of the Virginia Society of Enrolled Agents. Texas has been trying to pull me in since I've gotten here, and I'm like, no, I don't have any more hands. Like so there's always someone asking, but at this point, I'm trying to keep it to where it's all kind of related. So, at any rate, you know, the opportunities are there, so we'll just see what falls in my lap.
What I hear is that you
Excellent.
get bored easily.
You know, I'm not necessarily bored. I'm just always looking for the next challenge, right?
Same
So,
here. Same
yeah.
here. Yeah.
Excellent. There's a question about to Ty is it snowing where you are? I see pine trees behind you covered with snow. I think it's just your background, isn't it? Just Ty?
Fake Zoom background for the win. Because it's 60 degrees in Fort Worth, Texas right now. We're nowhere near pine trees, and I'm not looking for those. Being born and raised in Chicago, whoever wants snow can have it. If it shows up, I'd be happy to ship it to you.
Well, we don't have much outside. I'm hoping for a white Christmas, but we got about an inch outside right now. So being in Vermont. So Brad, what are your future plans?
Yeah, so I'd actually kind of break it up into the firm and then myself as well. One thing we've been seeing a lot within our firm is, as I had said, dealing with that next generation coming up, is we're seeing some transition from like one industry to another with a lot of our clients. So Sean had kind of mentioned it earlier, where she's seeing a lot of the smaller agricultural clients looking at opportunities or so forth. And especially where we're located here in Western Pennsylvania, we have a lot of farms that are dealing with gas and oil and mineral rights. So we've been helping them transition into that planning perspective. But another unique opportunity, and this is one of my favorite areas, is a lot of these family-based farms are seeing new opportunity in such as switching to wineries or distilleries with commercial beverage planning. So we've been helping them transition from a firm perspective into those type of areas. And that's where I'm actually finding a lot of fun, is learning about these new opportunities and helping them realize that in a lot of cases, these aren't terrible or difficult transitions. And then on the other side, I do a lot of consulting with cybersecurity in this industry as well. And as Ty had mentioned, as more and more people are getting into crypto and more folks are adding automation into their firms, that's really increasing the concern over security. So on the personal side, that's a lot of what I've been doing, is working with firms to make sure that as these new opportunities arise, that they're not compromising the integrity of data. So I look at it from two sides, the personal and then the firm side, because both are a lot of fun.
You brought up a really good point, Brad, about data security, which is a concern for all of us.
Mhm.
particularly in this day and age, and there's a lot of things that we need to comply with, both on the federal and state level. Well, federal level for sure, but like in New York, New York has got its own set of requirements. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple years ago, there were more stringent requirements put in place for all firms. And I, for one, was super behind that because I've seen how some firms have not necessarily taken security so serious. So I was glad to see some more regulation put in place. And then every year since then, we've actually seen increased requirements. So this past year, we've seen the FTC safeguards rule pushed out that had 9 additional requirements placed on each firm in financial services. So we've seen every year this increase, and I don't picture that going away. But even to your point, we're seeing now states stepping up. For example, Massachusetts about 2 years ago put a really huge requirement on data security for anyone that touches financial data. So it's not just the same tier as what the federal says. If you're operating inside of or with a client inside of Massachusetts, you now have to comply with their data security at a state level. So when we look at it at a federal, state, and technically, especially because I see a lot of folks on Facebook talk about their international travel plans, we actually have to look at it from an international perspective as well. So it's not the same situation we had, say, 15, 20 years ago. We're now in a digital world, and security really does have to take a forefront in a lot of our operational decisions.
There's a question. I received my EA credential in May of this year. Where should I look for a job? I've already tried H&R Block and Intuit. Does anybody, I'll let Shauna start. What would your recommendation be?
Well, I was lucky enough to step right into a firm, my father's firm that he had for 50 years. I would definitely, I mean, NAEA itself has so many avenues as far as employment. I would check there first, honestly. If I were just brand new, H&R Block, I believe, Kathy, you mentioned Intuit, correct?
Intuit, I think they've tried Intuit though, but NAEA does have a great job search tool. And
I think
this time of year, there's a lot of folks looking for tax preparers, tax professionals, and then as well as the CPA firms. So even if a job says CPA required, go ahead and apply. Go ahead and apply,
yes.
Because they're starting to, and I mean, that's when I applied for the current job that I'm sitting in, they were looking for a CPA. And when it comes to tax, not to beat up the CPAs, but EAs do tax. That's what we do. And most CPA firms are happy to see applications come in from enrolled agents. Look on LinkedIn as well.
The other thing that I would suggest is, I don't know where you're located, but I would suggest trying to hook up with your local affiliate and talking to the members of your local affiliate and see what they've got for potential job openings, because I know everybody is looking for help.
Well, and that's what I was going to suggest is go on to NAEA's website, look in the member directory and call. And I would suggest call local just so you do kind of get that help physically. But I know from our side, we hired 4 people this year. We would have loved, hands down, to find an EA. So I would definitely just look up a directory and start calling. I bet you probably get a couple interviews just within your first couple calls.
I'm curious where the person that asked that question is located.
I was gonna ask that too. Can you give us
Okay.
your location? I know in Texas we have New Jersey. They're in New
Oh,
Jersey.
great.
Yeah,
New
we
Jersey
have
affiliate.
a weekly meeting, and the EAs just get on that call, and so many people on there are hiring. They're like, does anybody know of anybody? So like the main thing is like to get connected with a group. Like if you're an EA, you should join the local NAEA, go to a meeting, even if you don't join, like go to a meeting, see if you like it. And then join organizations, because that's where you actually meet the people who are just literally hiring, and you don't have to. I don't know the last time I filled out a job application for a job. I mean, it was a long, long time ago, because once you know people, they're just like, hey, I know you. Come on in. Let me see what you know. You know, maybe they test you a little bit or ask you questions, but you're not going through this whole long, old school, you know, HR process if you actually connect with people. So I would say like join organizations and try to meet people so that you could definitely be available when someone's looking, because you have no idea at just these meetings where people are like, oh, you're new, are you working, would you be interested in a job? Like literally they're throwing these jobs
Yeah.
out if you're in the
Oh.
right place.
Yeah.
Like you
And
say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to mention, I saw it pop up that they're located in New Jersey. So the New Jersey affiliate, so if you look up the New Jersey Society of Enrolled Agents, is a strong affiliate. And I know a lot of people there that are active in that affiliate. And I guarantee you somebody there can introduce you to some place that's hiring, where you can get those years of paid experience, because you mentioned that you had been working at TaxAid. So definitely
And I
reach
think
out to
New
that
Jersey
affiliate.
has a virtual meeting too. Don't they have like a breakfast meeting?
Yep, they have
They
a
do.
breakfast with tax buddies meeting. Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like, yeah,
absolutely.
definitely reach out.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I told. That was my advice for somebody recently, was it's the connection. You know, it may say on the listing that here's the credentials we want, but until you talk face to face, you make that connection, you make, you know, and especially like you guys said, the affiliates, the meetings. I mean, that's crucial, especially if, you know, I've had some of our fellow EAs refer people to me. You know, why? Because they just feel like they can't handle it. Or maybe, hey, you know what, this office is looking. And unless you make that face-to-face connection, you know, you're not really going to get as far for sure.
Mm-hmm.
so here's another question for our panel. Hi, I'm an international student currently finishing my associates in accounting. Can I become an EA with my student visa?
I believe so.
I think so. I was
I do
gonna
not
say,
believe you have to be an American citizen to be
I've
an
never
EA.
seen that question.
I know you don't have to be an American citizen.
Mm-mm. I think you can do it. Yeah.
I think you can do it. As long as you pass the exam, I think you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brad, this is a question for you. Does McAfee cover the security qualification for a tax firm? What companies can you recommend?
Okay, well, I could go on for 6 hours, but I will just summarize it very briefly. I will say that McAfee is endorsed by the Department of Defense. Not the ultimate solution I personally select, but I know that's one that they recommend. But it does not meet all of the requirements for the security requirements of a tax firm. So if you're looking for details, I would go off to the IRS website and search for WISP, WISP, Written Information Security Plan, and that will give you the core components of what would have to go into that level of security.
Keisha wants to know, how do you find an NAEA chapter in your area? And I would recommend going to the NAEA website. There is a section on the NAEA website where you can find state affiliates, and it should have contact information with that. Let's see, Daniel is in Connecticut, and he also is looking for work. And again, I would say look up the Connecticut chapter and hook up with the people in Connecticut. I think that's a good place to start.
It looks like our magical NAEA person behind the curtain, Aaron, shared a link for them to find their affiliates. So that's in the chat.
Yes. I was gonna say also for the H&R Block and Jackson Hewitts, a lot of them want you to take their tax course and give priority to people that took their tax course to be hired. It's a lot harder to like just walk in with those. So if you're don't get discouraged because usually they don't hire enough. They might say no up front because they're waiting to see how many people they're gonna hire from their course. But a lot of them will throw in a short course like right now, like now to January, where they're not saying they're hiring you, they're saying they're offering a tax course. So if you see them offering a tax course, look into that because that's basically your door, your step in the door. You should take the course because it'll give you an overview of what to expect in the tax season anyway. But more than likely, if you're sharp coming out of that course, they're going to hire you. So that's kind of the sneak way into those type of places. I don't have a sneak way into it because they do test. They're a little bit tougher to get through.
Well, and I'm curious, they mentioned, I forgot the person's name, sorry, that when they were applied into it, they required 2 years paid experience. I think that's for a tax expert, but your way in the door would be to apply for a tax pro. And then once you get your foot in the door, I guarantee you they need tax experts. It won't take long until you're up that ladder. So
Excellent. Shauna, what are your future plans?
Well, I actually just got married. So
hey, congrats.
Congratulations.
thank you. My husband is a horse trainer. So that's actually one of the things we do with our business, which is, I know, weird, taxes and horse training. In the next year and a half, we're a national company, of course, because of our license. And so we plan to move to Wyoming, have our own ranch, which of course is good that I specialize in agriculture because we've already been talking about, how many acres, how we want to utilize the land, want cattle, et cetera, et cetera. So that's our primary. We're expanding. It's very exciting. It's like, so if I have a big smile on my face, it's because I've been teaching my husband in terms of, he runs the office. He's very good at running the office, and then he's training me to train horses. So it also gives me another in as far as talking to clients because I can truly relate in terms of what they're facing. It's interesting that Brad was talking about the different rights that they're dealing with. Yes, out west, of course, it's more with the water rights. But I also am an author, so I'm working on a novel of conspiracy. Well, it's interesting. I'll just mention it has to do with the FBI and the IRS, and it's loosely based on a true story. But that's basically, it's just a lot of excitement to, yes, have horses and cattle and dogs and be able to hopefully impact people in a great way on all aspects.
Can you depreciate a horse?
Yes, you can.
How do you depreciate a horse?
Well, it depends on how many years, how you use it, what aspect are you using it on the ranch, and what job it has specifically. So we ask questions as far as what is the job, how are you utilizing, is it just sitting out in the pasture and eating grass, is it retired, all those questions come into play. And then we evaluate, assess, and take it from there.
Here in Vermont, right around me, we have a lot of dairy farms. So it's how long the cow can produce the milk. So that's if you purchase the cow. If the cow is born from an existing cow on the farm, that's a different issue. But so yeah, the agriculture is kind of different, kind of weird, different rules, but anyhow. So Ty, besides virtual currency and being the editor, you also run your own firm and do tax returns. How much is representation versus tax prep? I assume you're doing tax preparation.
I am doing tax prep in my business. My representation part actually comes in with my crypto firm though. We have gotten many letters recently also, CP 2000s to be exact, stating that the income that we put on staking for crypto, which is basically when they receive rewards for holding a certain amount of crypto, essentially we put it on a Schedule 1 and we put it on other. We've gotten probably 4 or 5 letters in the past few weeks that have reclassified it as self-employment income. So we're not sure what's happening here because staking is not a business versus mining, which actually does go on a Schedule C. So now we're, obviously computer generated CP 2000s. We're trying to figure out what's going on with that, but we do have quite a few people that have gotten audited for their crypto that was reported or missing. And if you're in the crypto space, you'll see that KuCoin, which was another crypto exchange, basically got a John Doe summons and has to release a lot of client information. So they've actually removed the statute of limitations, which is 3 years in most cases, and said that people going all the way back to 16 and 17 have to report crypto if they didn't report it. And so we're actually amending 2016 and 2017 returns prior to the John Doe summons letters that we're expecting to come out. KuCoin has basically told the clients, hey, by the way, if you didn't report this, we had to tell the IRS that you had this information. So you might want to go report it now. So back in 2016, the word on the streets was that crypto was, secret. You didn't have to report it. It didn't go on a tax return, and then obviously, as we all know, because most of us as professionals realize IRC 61, all gross income is reportable, right? So basically any money you make anywhere is taxable or at least reportable, right? And potentially taxable unless it's not. In the case of crypto, it's definitely reportable. And so these new changes with, like you mentioned earlier, legislation, things coming down where they're forcing exchanges to release information on their clients and forcing these KYC or know your customer type requirements is basically bringing out information on underreported income from the cryptocurrency sector from years past, ghosts of Christmas past, as we can say with the upcoming holiday. So people who may have thought, oh, that statute's closed, they didn't catch me, it's before 2020, I'm good. Wrong answer. They've decided the statute doesn't apply in this case. So it can happen. So just being aware of things like statutes of limitations and seeing that it can change and just knowing what you can do as an EA. I'm actually the only EA in my firm. I work with the CPA, 2 or 3 CPAs actually, and I'm just going to loosely say work with, because any of these letters coming in are essentially being handled or being reviewed by me, and then people are responding. My preparers are able to respond and tell the clients how to respond. So in that aspect, I expect to do a lot more because I see more of those letters coming down on the crypto side. But in my personal practice, I'm not dealing a lot with, other than a random letter just saying, hey, that you didn't report this or this is wrong. Not a full audit or requiring full representation. But I do see the crypto cases possibly requiring us to run it back through software because they may not have run it through software initially or used good software initially. So for us, just like any software, what was there in 17 is definitely not as good as what we have now in 2023. So rerunning those numbers to provide that information to the IRS and say, hey, no, this is what we're coming up with is basically what I anticipate for my future.
Brad, in an earlier discussion point, you said that your firm had hired 4 people this year. I'm curious as to what the panel thinks as to if there are enough skilled people out there and if you think we need more EAs.
You definitely need more EAs. No doubt
I would
about
say,
that.
yeah, if
No
I
doubt
had
about that.
another
Do we know
EA to work with.
how many EAs there are now? Do we have
I
an
think-
updated number? Like 60,000 or so was like the last one. Are we higher than that?
I should know that, but I don't off the top of my
Last I
head.
knew, it was around 60,000 practicing EAs in the United
Mhm.
States, but I don't know what that number is now.
But in perspective, there's 750 to 800,000 CPAs, give or take.
hmm
So we're such a small number
We're
that
almost
Mhm.
10%.
we have room to grow, right?
We absolutely have room to grow.
We have
And-
room to grow, and there's so many, sorry, Catherine, there's so many firms out there that are desperate for help. That's one of the reasons why I slowed down my practice is I could not find people that could handle that had the education and the experience, or an EA license to help me, just help daily task of just getting returns done, or representation of a client. So yes, definitely a need for the more EAs in the world.
Well, Frank asked a question very early on, which got answered in the question, but it says, does your qualifications transfer from state to state? And the answer is yes, it does. I personally do a ton of multi-state work. I have businesses that, due to the nature of the business, they regularly and routinely go into various states to do work. And every time, the guy calls me up and says, oh, we're now going to this state. And I go, oh, darn, I have to register you in that state. But, that's the nice part about being an EA is that we literally can work any place. Ty can move from Virginia to Texas and not skip a beat.
Yeah, exactly. And with not that I'm beating up the CPAs, because I'm not, I have a lot of friends that are CPAs, but with a CPA license, that's a state board issued certificate, whereas an EA license is federal, including the Virgin Islands. So if you want to sit on the beaches and at St. Thomas and do tax returns, it's an option.
And I'll even add in that a lot of states have requirements to prepare within those states,
True.
and they will waive or reduce those for enrolled agents. So that has
Mhm.
allowed us to have more exposure into additional states without having to take additional exams or pay additional fees for those states.
Maryland, California, New York. Those are some of the main ones that I run into, and I check the box and say I'm an EA, leave me alone. That's really cool and really powerful, trust me.
Mhm.
And keep in mind also, for those of you that I was a military spouse when I started doing taxes, and that's why I did it, because I knew I could just do taxes in any state we lived in. But keep in mind that certain licenses and things by the state, you have to register, in the state when you get there, or do the qualifications for that specific state. And it becomes difficult for people that have a more mobile lifestyle to do something where it's bad enough you already got to change your driver's license and, your car registration, et cetera. And then it's like, in order to work, you have to do this if you're in certain fields, right? So you would want to pick something that's very, open and flexible if you're in that type of space where you kind of aren't sure you want to live in the same house for the next 50 years, or you're waiting until you pick that perfect ranch. Shauna, I am like a Yellowstone fan. So like when you talk about Wyoming and the ranch and all that, all I see is John Dutton, and I'm
Girl,
like, super
I'll
excited.
give you my address. You can come out, jump on a horse.
We have a question, and I'm not really sure who wants to answer this one. What is the difference between the AFSP and becoming an EA? And can you have both?
You don't need AFSP after you become an EA, and an EA does not take a test every year like the AFSP does. And I know some people say, oh, it's not that bad. It's just 100 questions. It's just this. Nobody wants to do that. For the AFSP, I think only requires 16 hours of CE. EA does require 24, so there's a little bit more for the EA, but all you have to do is get your continuing education every year, 24 hours CE, 2 of ethics, and that's it. We do more because we have complex clients and we have to know more. But that's the minimum. AFSP has a lower minimum, but an annual test. Nobody wants to take that test annually. Get your EA already.
Yes. Yeah, it's well worth it. It really is.
Kathy, will you be seeking help for your tax business in the future?
I wish I could say yes, but I won't be because as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm slowing things down a little bit, not building my practice the way it used to be. So, but again, connect with some members in your area. Look them up. It was shared in the chat how to find a member. Just look up an EA. That's one thing about NAEA. You can call anybody on that list, and I have never had somebody say, no, I won't help you. So look up somebody in your area and just call them and say, hey, I'm a new EA and I'm looking for a job. Can you help me out? Can you point me in the right direction? And I can just about guarantee that anybody that picks up that phone will be willing to help you. That's one of the great things about our community here.
So we're at 4:54. I'm gonna just go around and I'll start with Shauna. Any final thoughts for our attendees today?
I would say if you're contemplating becoming an EA, I would definitely encourage it. It's a wonderful license to have. It's a great feeling to be able to help your clients and be able to be that barrier between the IRS. You know, I always say the IRS is the bully, and then it's like we're wearing that cape coming in and going, hey, you can't bully my client. Education, like Ty, you know, there's so many different teachers out there, and it's very important to try to gain whatever knowledge you can from anybody. And discussing a client is great because you never know. Even if I was on a call today with a fellow EA and we were going back and forth about different clients, it's honestly the best license you can have. I know that sounds corny, but you know, I encourage you to pursue it. And if you are a new EA, you know, just continue to keep your head up. And like Kathy said, you know, we are a great community. Everyone wants to help. Everyone can, you know, succeed. There are plenty of clients out there. You know, the IRS is not going anywhere. And just try to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, I will kind of mix what Shauna and Kathy had both kind of said. So absolutely, I think the networking piece is one of the largest and most beneficial. To echo what Kathy said, I work with a lot of other EAs in this area. Some are less than like 30 miles away. Not a single one of us views each other as a competitor because there's just so much work out there. In a lot of cases, we call each other hoping someone has capacity to take on more work. So I think that's a really different perspective from the enrolled agent community than a lot of the other areas in this industry. So I would definitely suggest if you're trying to get into this industry, find those local EAs to work with, get in their network, because they will actually be a pipeline for potential new clients as you're trying to branch out and be in an EA.
Ty?
What are we talking about? Becoming an EA?
Yeah,
I mean, hello.
just your final thoughts.
You're here. No, I was joking, saying like this is it. Do you not see how cool we are? The people on this panel, was this like not fun? Do you not want to be part of this community? Like I will say that most EAs that I've met, I've been doing it since I was 2, so it was kind of like really my first career. But a lot of people, this is their second career or third career. A lot of EAs do not start out being an EA. So this is an interesting panel to have at least 2 people who say it's generational for them, because in most cases it's generational for like maybe CPAs, but you don't necessarily see an EA come out of that. EAs are people who found out later, oh my God, there's this field where I don't have to be a CPA and I can still do taxes. And they've already been an engineer or a doctor or something super cool in a former life, and then they become an EA. What I don't necessarily see is people become an EA first and then become something else, right? So this is once you become an EA, you're like, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. So I will say that I will probably be a yoga instructor after this. So I'm not gonna say that you don't switch up jobs, but this is it. This is the one.
You might be able to teach yoga up on Shauna's farm.
I could. Shauna, will you have goats? Because there's goat yoga.
Goat yoga, there you go.
Actually, we're gonna have donkeys.
And if anyone has taken one of my tax classes, I do teach yoga, breathing exercises, usually before and after I teach. So I incorporate it already. So I'm kind of working that transition, but it'll be a while.
Kathy, do
We
you
can do
have
a
any?
Zoom. A Zoom.
Just a couple of things to add to what's already been said. If you are not already an EA and you join NAEA, you can get part 1, I believe, correct, Aaron, of Sergeant review course, EA review course is included with your membership. If you are already an EA, utilize the job career page, as well as get involved with NAEA. Reach out, volunteer, start building that network. That's how all of us here know each other. We've met through volunteer work, except for Shauna. Sorry, Shauna, I didn't know you until today, but it's nice to meet you. But anywho, I mean, get involved, volunteer. There's lots of things that need to be done at NAEA, and they are always happy to have extra hands to help with those tasks.
And just to take what Kathy said just one step further, I've been on the NAEA Education Foundation for many, many, many years now. NAEA Education Foundation offers scholarships for EA review courses, both GLIME and Sergeant, so you can get the other parts that you have not gotten through your membership with NAEA. And we also offer scholarships for the exam fees, for Prometrics exam fees. So I would go to the NAEA Education Foundation website if you're interested, and see what we're offering to help you in your journey to become an enrolled agent. And I want to thank this fabulous panel for their great job. I look forward to seeing all of you sometime at a live in-person event, because if you think the panel is fun via Zoom, you ought to be with us when we get together in person. So I really appreciate everybody, and thank you very much. I'll turn it back to Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. This was our last EA career panel of the year, and I gotta say it was a great one. So thanks to all of our panelists and our attendees for your excellent questions. I did put some links in the chat, one to our career center, to our member, like how to volunteer, our served profession page, as well as our tax expert directory. So you have access to those. We are available to answer questions for you. You can always email education@naea.org or membership@naea.org, and we will funnel your questions to the right people or answer them ourselves if we can. And thank you again for your attendance. Happy holidays, everyone, and we will see you on the next one.
Happy holidays. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.